Welcome everyone to this webinar by PRGX, Retail Best Practices for Optimizing Your Recovery Audit Program. A retail merchandise recovery audit is a great mechanism for uncovering lost profits, but how do you know if you are getting the maximized resources and time you invested into the program? Well, this webinar will share current retail best practices and trends for optimizing your recovery audit program, focused on several key areas: audit guidelines, audit timelines, supply management, and audit expansion. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started today. Thanks for joining us for about 30 minutes of your time for this webinar. You can let us know through the question box if you are having any issues with the audio or seeing the slides. You can also use the question box to ask us any questions throughout the webinar. We'll do our best to provide answers at the end of the webinar. And lastly, you can follow PRGX on Twitter and LinkedIn to get alerts on more upcoming webinars. Before I introduce the speakers, I just want to make you all aware of a complimentary 3-day virtual series we have coming up in October. PRG Exchange is traditionally an in-person event, but this year we're making 6 sessions available online to all finance, procurement, supply chain, and shared services leaders. Topics range from recovery and supplier audit best practices, source to pay trends, ethics, diversity, the economic outlook. And you can register for one or all of 6 of these sessions on PRGX's Bright Talk channel, or you can visit goto.prgx.com/virtual for more information. So now to introduce our speakers. Firstly, Amy Petrosini has been serving retail clients at PRGX for over 20 years, delivering value to retailers in a variety of operational and leadership roles. And also Alison Duncan is a Senior Audit Director at PRGX with over 21 years experience in recovery audit, working in various lines of business, including grocery and retail. Thank you both for joining, and Alison, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Tim. The content for today's webinar is Retail Best Practices for Optimizing Your Recovery Audit Program. Amy and I look forward to the agenda items for today's webinar. They are audit guidelines, audit scope expansion, audit timelines, supplier management, and key takeaways. At the end, we'll also open up a Q&A session. Audit guidelines. Based on our experience working with the top global retailers and their respective client contacts, we have observed and been part of countless interactions between our client partners. We have witnessed both good and bad processes or lack of processes. Clearly documented audit guidelines is essential to a high-performing audit, and it is an industry best practice. Whether you develop policies, platforms, and/or rules of engagement, audit guidelines can help define your framework for retailers, suppliers, and auditors. For retailers, it ensures the audit is performed to retailers' expectations. It promotes collaboration across merchandise and finance departments and assists in faster claims processing, both from a collections point of view and payback resolution. It also reduces claim settlements by providing the highest value and working capital to your stakeholder. More often, gray areas are minimized, and it all does reduce ambiguity. Audit guidelines allow for a framework for retailers to continuously identify root causes and allows for timely system fixes by ensuring leakages are not repeated and future exposure is kept at a minimum. It also helps from a reporting point of view to other stakeholders within the organization. For suppliers, audit guidelines provide transparency and clarity. Suppliers are aware of the various claim categories and concepts and the data documentation that is used to generate such claims. It also aids in reducing supplier disputes, especially along the lines of escalations and client SLAs around feedback. For auditors, audit guidelines provide clarity to audit teams, especially as it applies to audit claim concepts, audit period, its applicability and relevance, dates, claim schedules, and various categories. It is important for auditors to be aware of these. Most retailers has multiple audit firms, and as such, audit guidelines creates a level playing field for all firms. This ensures all firms stay within clients' expectations. Defining audit guidelines. Guidelines are typically established across all dimensions of the audit, and some of the key areas include audit timelines. It details handover schedules from clients' internal team to the primary and secondary audit firms. What's in scope, auditable, and what's not. Under this, the creation of audit start-stop dates are essential discussion items that should be known beforehand. This usually can take the form of a Gantt chart showing each firm's designated start and stop date for each audit type and each audit category. Audit guidelines is also important when we consider audit acceleration schedules. Audit processes. Within audit processes, knowing the claims review, approvals, and escalation process is essential to all audit firms. The importance of and understanding auto-deduct thresholds is also an essential item that all firms should be aware of. Audit guidelines allow for identifying sensitive suppliers and ensuring the correct protocols are in place. Under claim types, audit guidelines identify shoulders that can be applicable within a given audit period or scope. Shoulders represent the before and after timeframes that can be included as part of the claim. Secondly, deal notification can be identified. And thirdly, audit guidelines defines applicable claim concepts such as price protection, pricing, rebates, etc. It is important that the audit guidelines become part of your overall audit structure and framework. A recent survey of clients across the industry showed the following results. Audit guidelines should be published, thus making it transparent for all merchants to understand the approach used in determining claim types, especially as it relates to data usage, formats, claim support, etc. The diagram far left shows approximately 55% of clients did publish audit guidelines. In collaboration with merchants, partnering and development of audit guidelines do allow for merchant feedback and support when required. Audit guidelines also should be refreshed at least once annually. It is important to solicit feedback from audit partners to ensure all relevant information is taken into consideration before any changes or additions are made. Guidelines should be kept relevant at all times. Dispute resolution. Guidelines should be part of the post-audit experience. Timely claim resolution can minimize vendor abrasion. The diagram furthest to the right shows 75% of claims are repaid if disputed when audit guidelines are established. Our experience has shown that audit guidelines is an industry best practice and should be part of the overall audit structure and framework. Let's move on now to audit scope expansion. PRGX delivers a comprehensive suite of recovery audit and analytics services to our retail clients. The traditional retail recovery audit areas include 1. The retail merchandise audit. This typically generates the most significant portion of recovery audit opportunities for retailers. Based on a wide range of claim types such as purchase-based allowances, pricing, price protection, POS rebates, and promotional trade funding. We also find specialized recovery audit opportunities across different departments within the retail organization, such as reclamation, freight logistics, or pharmacy. Under the traditional accounts payable disbursement review, we typically identify transactional errors such as duplicate payments, missed cash discounts, or unapplied credits on statements. And thirdly, under contract compliance audit, we look at indirect supplier agreements, identifying recoveries in areas such as price variances, incorrect labor rates, and markups. And finally, in our advanced analytics services, it's tailored to meet our clients' needs. Leveraging our technology platform and retail knowledge, we help retailers visualize their data and to make more informed decisions in areas such as margin improvement, payment terms, and much more. In addition to the traditional claim categories discussed on the previous slide, there are many new areas of opportunities that clients are capitalizing on today. PRGX's wealth of experience can partner with you to realize these opportunities, to improve cash flow and maximize your working capital. Some new emerging retail claim types are, firstly, click and collect. All about customers making online purchases and choosing to collect that purchase at a designated location. Opportunities in promotional discount, rebates, pricing can be realized if online data can be correctly mapped, cleansed, and processed. PRGX IT and audit specialists can assist you in realizing these new opportunities. Direct to consumer. Living in COVID-19 era, we are noticing more and more supplier vendors deciding to sell products directly to the consumer, bypassing third-party resellers. Again, opportunities in vendor agreement allowances, pricing, and rebates can be had. Digital. Recently, more and more clients are moving to electronic and digital flyers. Cost of advertising, listing of UPCs, and promoting items using this vehicle could be a source of opportunity. On the mobile technology and apps has been increasing over the last couple of years. More and more consumers are using apps to pay and scan to complete payment for purchases made. Enhanced discounts and promotional offers are often applicable on such. Opportunities can arise when the data is located and processed. PRGX specialists can help you unlock these opportunities. Market basket promotions. The advent of multi-vendor promotional strategies and other complex funding models is making it more difficult for retailers to ensure accurate tracking, validating, and billing processes. The audit process can ensure the correct data is sourced and the funding is captured. Subscription-based DCOM platforms do carry areas of opportunities as well where funding can be missed, and such opportunities realized. PRGX specialists can help you unlock these opportunities. And finally, goods not for resale. Under contract compliance, this is one of the new audit areas centers around reviewing indirect supplier contracts and invoicing details, ensuring the negotiated terms are reflected in supplier billings and special pricing for labor materials, rebates, SLAs, etc. is followed. New areas of opportunities are consistently changing. Let PRGX assist you to unlock these potentials. Thank you. Amy?
Yeah, thank you, Alison. So now we'll move into our best practice number 3 today, and this is focused on audit timelines and specifically audit acceleration. As the slide suggests, audit acceleration is a huge area of focus across the retail industry today. Now, the demand for more timely audits is increasing. We get frequent requests to compress audit timelines, to audit closer to the original deal or transaction. And the reasons for acceleration and the resulting benefits are really quite compelling, and you see them here. Accelerating cash and capturing as much of those current year funds in the current year. Vendors have noted that opening prior year books is a major pain point and disruption for them, and acceleration has proven to help reduce that abrasion. We see improved collection rates of claims when we audit closer to the transaction because the buyer-vendor negotiations and documentation are much more readily available. And then, of course, the more timely feedback of root cause insights and trends to really help the companies to close their process gaps and adjust controls to mitigate that leakage. So now that we know why people are accelerating, there are a number of models and approaches to consider. And even under each of these that you see here, we see many different varieties of implementation. For example, when we look at accelerated audits, quarterly or even weekly structures are becoming really quite common. In quarterly scenarios, retailers are often considering certain audit topics or claim types, or auditing perhaps the sensitive vendors, or maybe even just the top 10 or 15 that they have the most activity with. Vendors with audit time bars. Yes, there are still some out there, but moving to a more accelerated quarterly approach for those audit time bar vendors makes them really good candidates, and to ensure that their programs and their promotional events are audited comprehensively and that you're not losing any of that opportunity to recover that leakage if it occurs. And when we look at weekly scenarios, we typically see topic-focused approaches here. Things such as reclamation or scan downs or movement type promotions. These are the types of transactions and promotions that can be easily reviewed on a weekly rolling basis, typically in accordance with the retailer's promotional calendar. So those are some things to consider under a weekly scenario. And when we look across our North American retail audits today, I'd probably say that 90+% have implemented some type of accelerated structure, and many have plans to continuously evolve their audit program and continue to move to the right. As you see on the far right, preventive audit, that is actually something that is new and emerging and is becoming a very real, meaningful opportunity for retailers to actually have audits performed before the promotional events run, to have those deal details reviewed prior to the event to avoid any of the potential leakage or errors from occurring in the first place. So that we're considering today is to be our very best practice in acceleration. If you're considering acceleration, there are some things that we have seen to really help promote success. For example, really need to have a well-planned and thoughtful approach, ensuring that the model that you select aligns with your own company's objectives and strategies. You're going to want cross-functional collaboration. We see that being really critical, where all parties across the business, from merchandising and vendor relations, finance, IT, everyone needs to buy into the new process and understand the benefits, but also those hard cutoffs for internal daily processes and things that you're just going to have to allow the auditors to look at much more real time or current. And then perhaps the most critical consideration is IT and data acquisition. Data jobs are most likely going to need to change, also to a much more accelerated timeline than was typically needed under a traditional audit timeline. So you need to make sure that your IT department can deliver on that to ensure success of this new accelerated program. Okay, so now we'll move on to our fourth and final best practice today, and this is around supplier management and transparency. As we see, the underlying framework of the buyer-supplier relationships is really built all around active and ongoing negotiations, and the recovery audit is a generally accepted best practice in and of itself to ensure the result of those negotiations are executed and billed correctly. Yet, unfortunately, the resulting post-audit claim deductions often still create some vendor abrasion. However, the good news is we've found that the more transparency one can give vendors into the audit and the various aspects of the audit, the lesser the noise and the abrasion tends to be. As Alison suggested earlier, we recommend publishing audit guidelines, both internally and externally, as well as with your audit partners. Now, this ensures clarity of the retailer's operational expectations by all parties. And this isn't new. I mean, as far back as the early 2000s, the Institute for Customer Relationship Management published a very deep, in-depth article that both vendors and retailers agreed that documenting and sharing policies and guidelines with all parties really reduce the ambiguity and anxiety in the process. So if you're not sharing them today, I'd really recommend that you consider doing so. Again, it's just the greater the transparency there around what the audit expectations are, the more seamless and smooth the process will be. So once you've agreed on those guidelines, we not only, like I said, suggest that you distribute them to the vendor community, but or on your vendor website, but definitely share them with your buyers as well. I'm sure you all know that often, buyers are the first point of contact when a vendor sees a deduction. So they can help support the company's position, when they are contacted by those suppliers. Give your suppliers access to the claim copies. Regardless of the audit review policies or guidelines in place, making sure that the vendors have access to claims in support of those deductions is a really important aspect of transparency. Our recommendation would be to provide the suppliers with remote online access, whether that's claims posted and accessed on your auditor's claims management portal or perhaps through your own vendor portal, but really, ensuring that vendors do have access to those claims, again, will further reduce the abrasion through that increased transparency. And then, of course, along those same lines, providing the visibility to the actual deduction details has also proven to be one of the most beneficial steps in improving transparency. So some considerations in support of this and, some benefits that we do see. I'm not going to go through each of these individually, but some common themes here for the retailer include reduced number of vendor disputes, inquiries, and repayments. And then, of course, the resource costs associated with addressing or responding to each of those issues. And then on the supplier side, the benefits include, also the reduced costs, both in time and personnel, in handling the claims and adjustments, given the increased visibility to supporting details, as well as the reduced frustration for waiting for responses back from from either the auditors or the vendor relations department or whomever it may be, going back and forth, requesting further details, et cetera. When there's access to all of that detail and that deduction management portal, it really does help to, again, to promote that transparency. So as you consider ways to increase transparency into the recovery audit process in your own organization, probably one of the most effective measures we see, as I just referenced, is standing up a robust deduction management solution, ideally with vendor self-service functionality, which again will further reduce your team's time and resource cost as well in supporting all of those requests back from the suppliers. So while there certainly is investment required on the front end, whether you choose to build your own or partner with a third party, such as PRGX, to implement such a solution, there are 6 key attributes to consider to maximize that investment and ensure the best-in-class portal, which you see here: visibility, workflow, reporting, frontline contact, support, and analysis. All of which, as I said, if really can go very far in helping with reducing vendor abrasion and increasing that transparency to the post-audit process. Okay. So those were our 4 best practice recommendations today. Some key takeaways include clearly documented audit guidelines provide benefits to all stakeholders. Continuously look for new audit areas or audit types to expand scope, increase recoveries, and further reduce leakage. Evolving your audit to an accelerated model is becoming an industry standard. And with many looking to audit ahead of the event to prevent those errors from occurring in the first place. And finally, consider increasing the level of transparency for your vendors in all audit-related activities, such as claim details and deductions, guidelines, et cetera, whether thought more proactive manual measures or taking less resource-intensive course of action, such as standing up a deduction management solution. Okay, so with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Hopefully there were a thing or two you can take back for consideration. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Tim for questions.
Great, thanks Amy, thanks Alison, really great insights there. So just a reminder to anyone, if you do have questions, you can put it in the question box and we'll look to get through those today. We've got a couple that have come through already so far, so we'll go through those first. So firstly, how do your guidelines compare to the industry? And Alison, maybe I'll pass that one to you first.
Sure, thanks, Tim. A recent survey of multiple clients found that 80% of retailers do have audit guidelines. And with that, as well, the results have shown that having audit guidelines is really an industry best practice, and it should be in place for the company, for your client, for suppliers, for retailers, as well as for audit firms.
Great. Second question. At my company, we still audit on the traditional cycle of 1 year in arrears. What's the best way to start an accelerated audit? And maybe Amy, do you want to cover that one?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a really good question. So it sounds like you already have a recovery audit partner in place, given the traditional cycle. So that team would really be a great place to start. You can collaborate with the audit leader to understand which audit topics or model may be best to start with, given the the footprint and the framework of your audit and your promotional practices today. So depending on the nature of funding types and structures, certain areas lend themselves more easily to acceleration, and you can really start with some of those quote unquote more simple concepts, and then continue to evolve over time. And if you think back to kind of that roadmap slide that we showed you earlier, that's nobody jumps right into the very end. It really does become an audit evolution over time. So start small, but again, your audit partner really should be a great place to start to help you put those plans in place.
Great, thanks, Amy. And the last question, who is involved in drafting and approving your audit guidelines? Alison, maybe I'll pass on back to you.
Thanks, Tim. And for the most part, the drafting of the audit guidelines is led by the finance and the internal post-audit team. And they work in collaboration with all parties, all outside firms. And also, before it's finalized and approved, we need to seek, or most of the time, it's the senior merchants of the organization and also finance department that approves it at the end and roll it out to all the respective firms.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Alison. Thanks, Amy. No more questions have come in, so we'll wrap it up. Really appreciate your time and great insights that you provided today. And thanks everyone for joining the webinar, whether that's been live or on demand. Just a reminder, we have a number of webinars available on demand on PRGX's Bright Talk channel, in addition to a number of upcoming live webinars, including our PRG Exchange virtual sessions in October. But for now, we'll close this webinar out and appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.